Reddit. What is the most ducked up way you got back at someone that wronged you? Throwaways encouraged. Too late to the thread, but this is a good story. Everyone has worked with someone they hated. I've never had a job where there wasn't someone who made my life miserable, or whose very presence pissed me off. Usually you just have to put up with them, but every once in a great while, you can get evenness. Dave was a D. Stoop-shouldered, balding, in his 50s. Dave was a patronizing and irritating bastard. He'd been at IBM his whole career, had been making good money, and hated contractors. He thought they were bad for the company, that the only people worth it were regular employees. And he made it his personal priority to duck with all of us. Nothing overt, but constant subtle pressure was put on everyone whose badge said contractor on it. I think he developed this attitude from working with the guys from India. Probably because they were so soft-spoken and accommodating. But maybe he was just a racist. I don't know. But whatever the reason, he took every opportunity to send us on little errands. Wouldn't get back to us if we needed something. Criticized anything we did and generally made our lives hell in a way that couldn't be directly protested. I was pretty good friends with the guy sharing the room with him. Another full-time employee, and one day Robert called me up. We're going for coffee. Okay. Let me just finish up a few things. You don't understand. We need coffee now. Right. I headed over to his office and he met me about halfway there. His eyes were shining with glee, but he wouldn't tell me what was going on until we had our coffee in the cafeteria. Once we finally had a table, he said, "Okay, Dave's a fetish wrestler." He's a fetish wrestler. Dude, I've got nothing. WTF is a fetish wrestler? It turned out that there were men who pay women to wrestle them into submission. Some of them did it as a sort of hobby and others were extremely serious about it. Dave was one of the latter. Several times a year, he'd tell his wife he was meeting up with old army buddies but went to fetish wrestling conventions instead. They were highly organized, had rings set up for use, referees to score the matches and everything. I never quite understood the need for refs. But hey, it's not my fetish. There were web pages devoted to the women who were available to wrestle, and Dave's favorite was a woman named Red Robin. She was a little tiny woman who was an absolute beast, and he paid her thousands of dollars every time he'd go to one of these conventions for her to wrestle him for about 20 minutes per match. We went back to my office and pulled up Red Robin's website. Why does he pay this woman to wrestle him? She's ugly as hell. Do they duck after? He says no. Let me get this straight, as Dave lies to his wife, flies out to California to have an ugly woman named Red Robin wrestle him into submission, pays her $400 per match, and doesn't duck her? Yep. Bullet. I went onto the main wrestling site and started reading Dave's posts, and there were a ton of them. He talked in great detail and depth about the sport, had invented his own move, called the Twisted Ostrich, and told stories about amazing matches he'd won and lost. Look, I'm all about people's private lives remaining private, and I probably wouldn't have done anything if he hadn't so consistently been a duck to me, but he had. So game on. I registered a fake account under the name Suplex on the wrestling website and started corresponding with him. I started by asking him some technical questions about the Twisted Ostrich, but it wasn't long until he started asking me personal questions. As time went by, I fleshed out the character, so within about a month he had become quite good friends with Miss Plex. I told him I was a late 20s single lawyer living in DC. My marriage had ended because my husband just didn't understand my interest in such a harmless sport. It was so nice to talk to someone like him who really understood me. It was unbelievably satisfying. Every time he'd send me on some stupid errand, I'd think of how he was confessing his private life to the character I'd created. Oh, and he lied his ass off. He dropped a good 10 years and his wife somehow. Finally, he asked for a picture. Well, I'd already downloaded a whole set of a girl who looked about that age, and the photos didn't look professional. I started with a simple one and he gushed about how hot I was. Over the next few weeks, I sent him more and more photos, each more revealing than the last, until the girl was fully nude, but didn't look posed. He started trying to be really sexy, and started talking about how the best way to end a good wrestling match was with sex. Hold the phones. He'd told Robert that there wasn't any sex at the matches. I probed a bit and he finally admitted he had sex with the girls he wrestled. I ducking knew it. They were hookers working a special kind of crowd. It made more sense he was spending $400 per match. I amped up the 6 he talked to, including wrestling into it. It was gold. He was hooked. His work slowed down. He became obsessed with suplex and quite frankly, my work suffered as well, having to answer all his notes. Fortunately, he didn't notice because he was too busy sending off love letters. Now it was driving me nuts, because here was this creepy 50-ish guy who was still giving me a daily ration of it but was secretly having an online affair with a character I'd created. Robert and I had a ton of fun ducking with the poor guy, but one day, he called me up again or raw coffee. Now, at the cafeteria he told me that Dave had another army reunion coming up and we should see if we could get him to come to DC to meet Sue instead. Genius. I sent Dave an email and said we should get together sometime. Boom. In a flash. He responded that he had been thinking the same thing and had some time off in a few weeks. Would I be interested in him coming to visit? Yes I would. As Sue, I arranged to meet him in DC at local hotel. As the day approached, Dave became more and more excited and ducked with us less and less. He still tried, but the conviction and heat wasn't there anymore. Robert and I were going nuts, having to act like nothing was going on while Dave prattled on about how happy he was to hook up with his old army buddies. What a fun trip it would be. How he was hoping he didn't get pinned down by the snow, etc. I guess he thought he was being clever, but since we already knew the entire story, it just came across as pathetic. He left early on a Friday to catch his flight, smiling like a champ. Tuesday morning, he showed up looking like his best friend had died. We asked what was wrong and he tried to play it off like he was just tired from his long weekend. But as soon as he could, he sent Sue a message asking what the hell had happened and why hadn't she showed up. We waited to respond until after lunch. He was a basket case. Finally we fired back a furious message that we'd called his house on Friday just to leave him a message and some woman answered. We said we'd pretended to give her a survey and we knew about his wife and 4 kids. So he'd been lying to us all along. Basically, we went batshit crazy on him. We told him if he ever tried to contact us again, we'd tell his wife everything. We waited for him to get the email, watched him surreptitiously read it, and then we watched him have a meltdown. He started sweating like crazy, called his wife to check on her, and finally left early. He was never the same after that. He pretty much stopped messing with contractors and kept to himself. We never sent him any more emails and he never sent any to Sue. My contract ended not too long after that and that was the last I heard of him. It couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. Edit. Motor Sagmanen gave me Reddit gold for this story. Thanks man. Edit 2. Multiple people have called me out for plagiarizing this story from a book, then link the actual book I supposedly stole it from. Funny thing, that's my book. I wrote it. The name The War Lizard Chronicles. The author name, War Lizard. And hell, since my picture is on the cover, all of those things should help clarify things. I covered his ceiling fan with glitter. Fear me Methodicas. From another post. When I was 7 or 8 I did a science project on the antibacterial efficacy of various soaps. Basically involved keeping hands dirty for a day, pressing grubby thumbs into petri dishes full of agar, then washing and doing the same again. I'd take tracings of the cultures. Bigger colonies were bad, smaller ones good. This ended up winning the county science fair for my grade in a large metropolitan area, so that was nice. But before that, after I'd finished the experiments but before I'd discarded the dishes, I got into a dispute with my parents. Don't remember what about. I thought, I'll show them. So I took the nastiest culture and swabbed it onto their bedroom doorknob. They both got sick as dogs and I had to take care of them for a couple of days. Served me right. TLDR. I waged bacteriological warfare against my parents using my science project. But I told them long ago and we laugh about it now. My past girlfriend cheated on me, and her roommate at the time had gotten to that point in their lease where they weren't super fond of each other and kept some distance. Her roommate was smoking hot, kind of itchy sometimes, and wasn't fond of my ex, so I decided to make a move on her. Best move ever. The look on my ex's face when her roommate walked me to the door in her underwear after the first night was priceless. He proceeded to have hot, Dirty, loud 6 almost nightly for next 8 weeks until their lease was up, and for a while after that. My ex even walked in on us in the living room once. Kinda dish. But goddamn was it fun, and there's no way I felt bad about it. TLDR, my GF cheated on me. I have loud awesome 6 with her roommate until the lease is up. Edit. And so it came to pass that the highest voted thing I will ever post on Reddit was under a throwaway in a "what's the most ducked up thing you've ever done" thread. Lol. I lived incredibly well. I have one I'm about to do in a couple days. See, my parents suck. I've been taking care of them for a while also going to school and whatnot, and still they are trying to cheat me, pawn my things, etc. But I've become fed up with them. I'm out of town at the moment, but when I get back, the next time they ask me to walk 2 miles to get them a pack of cigarettes, I will walk outside, around the house, have a friend with a van come, bring my pre-packed it out of the basement entrance, leave and stay at my friend's house for a few days until the day my train ticket is planned for, then move 2,000 miles across the country and live with another friend who just got me a job, rendering them worthless pillheads waiting for a pack of Pall Mall Menthol 100s for the rest of their sad lives. One time a friend pranked me by pissing on my sausage. 4 years later I got him back by putting my D in his beer at a bar when he went to the bathroom. He drank the whole thing before I let him know. I don't forget it like that. Edit. It took a little nap and came back and this done blowed up. To answer a couple of questions. 1. It was a draft, therefore in a glass. And 2. I mean sausage as in food. He did not piss on my cock. That is all. Edit 2. Okay, so this is how it happened. Not very exciting or anything. We were at a sports bar drinking and shooting the it. Playing pool. My buddy who had pissed on my sausage, by the way, did it before they put it on the grill. So sort of a piss marinade, set his beer down to use the restroom. One of my other buddies pointed out that he had left his beer unattended and that I should duck with it, because all of my close friends are aware that he had pissed on my sausage as well and I had not really gotten the chance to get him back. Well, I did the first thing that pops into my head. So I grabbed his beer, hit a corner, unzipped my pants, unleashed the cock meat and put it in his beer. I proceeded to stir his beer a couple times with the D, resheath that bad boy, and place his beer back to where it was. When he came back, nobody said anything and he enjoyed his newly stirred, not shaken beer. When he finished, I just asked, "Remember when you pissed on my sausage? How'd my cock taste?" Itch, he knew. I had a friend in high school who became an arsehole during our senior year. There were a bunch of little things that added up to our friendship falling apart. But at the worst of it, I pooped on his car one night. Real simple. I just crawled up on the hood of his car and took a rit on his windshield. I just knew that he'd walk outside the next day and think, "What the duck is this?" Fun fact, we're actually great friends again now. He still has no idea it was me. Nothing to do with me, but here's one of the most baddest stories I've seen on Reddit. Does anyone remember the girl who jabbed a Q-tip in her friend's rapist's ear, ergo making him deaf in one ear? I thought that was pretty intense. I tagged her the Q-tipped Avenger. Edit. Apparently, the girl's a guy. Also, they're her words, not mine. I know nothing about the mechanics of Q-tip deafening. At an all-male military boarding school during high school, there was this huge douche on my hall. We took his Febreze bottle and filled it with piss, then took said bottle and sprayed his pillow, wall locker and opposite corner. So he gets back, smells urine and immediately grabs his Febreze and douses everything. Eat a D. Donovan. Eat. Capital A. D. I used to live in a very small town, like 250-300 people. We had no stores, gas stations, etc. One day a local guy decided to open up a little store that sold the basics like groceries and rented movies. He hired a few of us high school kids to work the store and promised $50 a week for the summer to be paid at the end of the summer. We agreed and started working. We gave up a summer stocking shelves, cleaning the bathroom, lawn care and whatever else. Well, the end of the summer comes around. It's our last day of work, and he comes by with our paychecks, $50 for each of us, for the whole summer. Needless to say, we weren't too happy, but his words were, "What the duck are you gonna do about it? Drop the key off at my house since you won't need it anymore." We came up with a plan to pay this douchebag back. Before locking up the store for the last time, we left a window unlocked. We dropped the key off at the house. Around midnight, we were back at the store, grabbed as much as we could. Cigarettes, money from the register, candy, probably about $1,000 worth of it. Locked the window, then left through the emergency exit that had no alarm. There were also no cameras of any kind. Next day there were cops there. He accused all of us of doing it, but had no proof. He ended up having to shut down the store a few months later because the town heard how he didn't pay us and stopped doing business there. I don't feel bad. Ducker deserved it. Thanks for tripling my comment karma. Figures it's about a crime I committed 15 years ago. Should have used a throwaway. One time I pranked someone by going into their host files and blocking Reddit. They couldn't go on Reddit for weeks. That's pretty ducked up. Full stop. Friend and I were fishing at a local creek when my friend's brother pulled up. Being the D he normally was, he started throwing rocks in the creek to scare the fish, and then he threw my friend's bike in the creek. We were 13 at the time. My friend was crying and I felt so bad. I jumped into the creek and got his bike out. Told him we would get his brother back. About a month later we were fishing again and it was the dead of summer. I told my friend today is the day we get his brother back. Caught a 2-stroke 3-pound carp. Threw it up on the side of the bank and left it there until we were done fishing. At the end of the night went back to his place. His brother's car was sitting on the street. We took the carp, sliced it open and threw it under the driver's seat and rolled his windows 3-stroke 4 up. The next morning when we woke and left I forgot about what we had done. Well, when I rode past JT's car I noticed the window was kind of black, and then I took a closer look. It was covered in flies. I actually got scared because I did not expect a window caked with flies. By the time I got home I was laughing in tears because his brother was always such a D to us. Fast forward to baseball practice about 3 days later. Friend had a black eye but smiled at me when we made eye contact. His brother flipped out and ran into his house and punched him in the face. His mom flipped out on his brother. Brother was grounded for the rest of summer. His mom said that my friend would never do such a thing and he played along and acted as if he had no idea. Apparently the smell never really left the car. We nicknamed his brother Lord of the Flies. I posted this in another thread. When I was 13, I woke up in the middle of the night to a man laying next to me in my small bed, staring right at me. I looked at him all confused and told myself, "Oh, silly, you're having a nightmare." So I smiled at him, closed my eyes and was about to fall back asleep when he started touching my thigh. Two things happened at once. I realized that I was only in my bra and underwear and that I was definitely not having a nightmare. Fear like I've never felt before gripped every inch of my body and I think I stopped breathing. He started making his way up to my underwear, presumably to take them off. What did I do? I opened my eyes and I said, "Hold on a second. I have to pee." He looked shocked, but didn't stop me as I wrapped my blanket around my body and proceeded to take a few steps toward my bathroom. Then I noticed that my bedroom door was wide open, so I bolted. I ran to my mom's room, banged on the door and screamed about how there was a man in my bedroom. My mom came out to the hallway and had just started reassuring me that it was a bad dream when the ducker dashed out of my room and toward the front door. My mom froze, but I got the biggest sense of how the duck dare he try to abuse me. That's when I grabbed a lamp, ripped the cord out of the wall socket as I started chasing him, insanely waving that lamp and screaming all the profanities that my 13-year-old mind has ever heard. I chased the ducker down the streets while my mom called the police. I lost him somewhere in the dark, but when the police came, got statements and started searching the neighborhood, I got my revenge. They caught him hiding in the bushes, brought him over, and asked me to identify him. I marched right up to that motherfucker, kneed him in the balls and walked away saying, "Hell yes, I want to press charges." Edit. David Answer 08. Who gave me Reddit gold? Thank you. My friend hit me, jokingly, so I licked my hand and rubbed it all over his face. In hindsight, the fact that I kept doing it for weeks afterward was probably what made it weird. My so-called best friend in primary school stole my shiny Pokemon cards. I was only 6 or so at the time, but that didn't stop me from being a sadistic little first grader and having older brothers. Well, let's just say I knew how things worked. Guess who found out the truth about Santa, the Tooth Fairy and the Power Rangers all at once? Don't duck with 6-year-old me. I was being bullied by this kid 2 years older than me in school, but I didn't want to tell the teachers or my parents because I wanted to handle it myself. Anyway, he wasn't hitting me or anything. He was just verbally harassing me during the day, but hey, I was fine with that. I had plenty of friends to chill out with and he was a lonely bully, so we have to write a physics exam. And we all have those graphical calculators. You can write programs in them and archive them so a RAM reset can't delete the programs. Only a default reset can. Right before the exam, he came to me and told me to give him all the cheat programs I had. Well, what he did not know is that I prepared one with wrong formulas for that D-head. When I transferred the program over to his calculator, I had a huge smile on my face. He got a 6 for that exam, which is equivalent to an F. Sweet sweet revenge. D. Edit. Thanks for all the upvotes guys. I guess it's time to clarify some things. 1. This was around 5 years ago. I was still pretty young. 2. Yes, I live in Germany. The best grade there is a 1, while the worst is a 6. You can compare it to the A's and F's of England. 3. I didn't have any more problems with the bully, since I was about to change the school anyway and those exams were the end of year exams. Now, in my new school, I have plenty of friends, not being bullied by anyone. Partly because I changed my attitude, but also partly because when you notice some faults about yourself, you can fix them and become a better person. My girlfriend of 3 years that I dated through high school broke up with me my first semester of college. We went to different schools and I later learned she was hooking up with one of her guy friends there. Anyways, when we both were on break she asked me to bring back all the stuff she had given me. Presents, sweatshirts, cards, etc. So I drive to her house with all the things we've exchanged in the past 3 years. Once I got to her house I saw that she had invited all her friends over and they were sitting with her along with her parents in the garage. Anyways, I walk up with her and exchange. Everyone there had that smirk on their face like they were laughing at me. Anyways, as I give her back her things I say, if only I could give back your virginity. The look on her parents' faces was absolutely priceless. And I walked out of that lion's den with the biggest smile on my face. Duck throwaways because I'm proud of this. My best friend since I was 3 years old started texting and flirting, then eventually sleeping with my boyfriend of 7 years. He was apologetic, regretful, and begging for me back, as was she. It was a mistake, they said. Never happen again, they said, until it happened again. Well, my best friend had this obsessive relationship with this guy Billy, who was so heartbroken by her infidelity. He came to me. He felt like a loser having just lost both his girl and his job. So I hired him at my job where I was a manager. We became good friends, and my now ex-best friend was going nuts. I then started a rumor that Billy and I were dating and serious about it. She saw us in a car together while I was bringing him home and went ducking nuts. She started driving like a psycho and texting me saying, "How could you do this to me? Why would you do this to me?" Buet, I ignored them. I dipped off the road and dropped him off at home, and unfortunately had to fire him for stealing money from work. All in all, I got my revenge. I ducked with her head. I ducked with my ex's head. Got them all upset, but never actually did the horrible act of cheating that they did. But they all think I did, and I'm okay with that. My friend got roofied and raped by a frat duck about a decade ago at a local high-toned university. Despite a written of evidence, he was never arrested, never expelled, never had to face any sort of penalty for this, and managed to get my friend labeled a slut who totally wanted it and was now only pretending it was abuse because he wouldn't break up with his girlfriend for her. Pretty charming guy. Really, I put capsicum extract in his eye drops. Not me, my brother. When my younger brother was about 3, my father had to look after him for the day. The plan was that he, after asking his boss, would take him into work for the day. It was office work, and he was friendly with his boss, so my mum assumed it was no big deal. My father, however, didn't want a toddler distracting him all day, so he left him in the car with the radio on and a carton of apple juice. This is Britain, so it wouldn't overheat. But either way, he was being an ass. At the end of the day, he returned back to his car to drive home, expecting a sleeping toddler who wouldn't tell his mother a thing. Instead, upon his return, he found his son jumping up and down on the front seats to the radio on full blast, naked and laughing, slipping around and covered in it. He had soiled himself, removed his nappy, his fecal matter everywhere. It was smeared all over the driver's seat, the windscreen, the steering wheel, the sat-nav, the driver's window, even hand printed on the ceiling. Our dad didn't even know that toddlers could even produce this vast amount of turd. The only car seat that was completely untouched was his own. TLDR. My 3-year brother was abandoned in a car for 8 hours. Later found smearing his own brand revenge paint all over my father's beloved BMW. My first high school BF was not very good with grades, so he asked me to make him a fake report so he could show his parents and not get into trouble. He also cheated on me with my best friend and dumped me. He then promised to get back with me if I forged the report for him. I agreed up until the day when we were meant to get our reports for school. I told him I didn't do it. He got bashed by his dad when he got home for the string of D's and F's. My neighbor knocked my dad's motorcycle and simply left it on the floor. It smashed a mirror and they didn't even leave their insurance details. My dad refused to call the police, saying they probably didn't notice. Yet I saw them look at it and proceed to carry on with their usual lives. This annoyed me so much, I decided to call 20 taxis, 5 Chinese takeaways, and a stripper dressed as a policeman to their house all for 1 AM in the morning. It was a really dish thing to do, but we all do stupid things, right? My sister used to beat me up, steal my birthday money, call me a fag in front of friends and girls I liked. When mom went shopping for Christmas, my sister would tell her to buy me these horrible clothes to make me look the part. Pretty much was just a total itch to me. So every time I had to pee in the shower, I'd pee in her shampoo and body wash all over her razor, body sponge thing, everything. Duck you, Vanessa. I can't decide whether OP is creepily brilliant or brilliantly creepy. My brother once stole my bag of Skittles and didn't admit to it, so I bought a bag and opened it carefully so that I could reseal it. I took every Skittle, except the green apple, out and replaced them with Mandamp MS. The look on his face was priceless. Edit. For clarification, there were Mandams and green Skittles in the bag, and he ate by the handful. So, no, it would not be delicious.